Thank you very much for your time. I want to start this interview by looking back at your career for some of the very few people who don't know you. Why did you become professional wrestler and when did you start doing professional wrestling?
So it was New Year's Eve going into 2013. And I was in a position where had been, I felt like I had not achieved the goals that I'd wanted to. And I had to ask myself, what do you really want to do with your life? And I was 24, about to turn 25, and I knew that my dream was to be a professional wrestler. But for whatever reason, I just didn't have the confidence or whatever reason to do it. And I just thought, you know what? I'm about to turn 25. If I'm ever going to do this, it has to be now. So I made a deal with myself that January 1st, 2013, I'm a professional wrestler. And we made it here. So it worked out pretty well. So it was just a case of me committing 100% to what the dream was.
And speaking about your career, of course, you debuted for Impact. It was 2018, then you came back in 2022. How do you compare your two runs? Do you think this run is better than before?
Well, I mean, absolutely. It's one, I've matured a lot as a performer. I have better physique. I'm better at promos. I'm better in ring. I'm just better at everything now. I feel like I'm well seasoned. And I've traveled the world doing professional wrestling, and I've been signed to multiple major organizations. And I've genuinely wrestled most of the biggest names in the world, to be honest with you. If you go up and down, the main cards of all the major promotions, I feel like I've wrestled most of the talent. So I've learned so much in between those two periods of time. In 2018, I didn't have a visa, so I was only performing when Impact was in Canada and in Mexico. So I think I was only there for about 5 or 6 shows, and then they moved tapings back to America, and so it just came to a conclusion. I think there's a misconception that, oh, the first run didn't go so well or whatever, but I think it's tough to call it a run when it was a space of about 3 months or something.
Okay. And what do you think has been so far your best match and maybe moment during your TNA career so far?
In my TNA career, that's interesting. Best match. I think my best match is the match I had with Moose at Hard to Kill in Atlanta. I think that stands out to me as I feel like that was a breakout moment for me, proving that I could hold my own, high up the card on a pay-per-view against one of the best in the world and now our world champion Moose. So that definitely stands out to me as my best match in Impact Wrestling. I've also really enjoyed working with Eddie Edwards as well. We worked together on the Australia tour. I worked with Moose again on the Australia tour. I've been very fortunate. I've worked with Frankie Kazarian in Glasgow as well. We're working with the best people in the world. It's pretty awesome.
And speaking about TNA Wrestling, of course, Italian fans can catch TNA on the Zone and TNA Plus. TNA Wrestling has a huge stack roster. Is there someone on the roster that you would like to face in the couple months that you haven't faced before?
Well, I mean, I think that, if I think about it, I probably have the best win-loss record of anyone against Moose. So in singles competition, I think I now have 3 victories over Moose, who is our world champion. And to be honest with you, I think the fans want me to move up and to move up the card and to be on those pay-per-views and to have those high pressure situations. I think the fans want to see what it would be like if I take a crack at the world title. So yeah, let's say Moose.
So,
But before I say that, it's got to be AJ Francis. We got to have that singles match. We got to do it. AJ Francis is, all jokes aside, all videos aside, he is super underrated as a talent. And people are going to start realizing how good that guy is. When I do these videos, that's not taken away from his ability, because this guy is, quite frankly, one of the best promos in the business, and he's one of the strongest guys in the business. And I think that we have one of the programs that is getting some of the most attention in the company. So now it's time for me to move forward, and it's time for us to showcase what we can do.
and I was about to ask you about AJ Francis. Of course, Italian fans know him about his previously running WWE, but do you think that now in TNA he can be his own man and doing his own stick now and maybe do it better in TNA? And as of course, you know, your program, I think it's going to be very, very entertaining and very catchy. So do you think he can do well in TNA?
I think it's I think it's like what I mentioned earlier about, I've had multiple runs in multiple companies, and I think when you have those experiences, you learn from them. And I think that now you're going to see AJ Francis become the absolute best version of himself. And he's going to need to be the absolute best version of himself because I'm world class at what I do. So when you put the two of us together, I think initially people may not have had super high expectations of what happens, but I feel that what we've done has proved everybody wrong, and we were getting eyes on the product. We're putting out great stuff, and I think when we clash, I think that whatever you feel about it, whether you love it or hate it, people are going to want to watch.
Speaking about creating engaging rivalry, I have to ask you about the rivalry that you had with Simon Miller, that it was very entertaining during Food Network and all the stuff itself. What do you think about your rivalry against Simon Miller?
Again, I think this was a key opportunity for me to show the company what I can do. So it was, Simon Miller had never wrestled for TNA before, but I went to management and I was confident with the skill set that the both of us have collectively and the eyeballs that he brings to the table that we could deliver something that would engage the wrestling fan base. And I remember um, Bully Ray pulled me aside and say, "You had me for a moment there. You had me for a moment there." And for him to say that, there's no bigger compliment for someone who's seen it all and done it in the business. The fact that we were able to get Bully Ray to suspend his disbelief, even for just a few seconds, that to me is the biggest compliment. So I'm very proud of that.
Speaking about the huge expansion that TNA has had in the past couple of years in Europe and UK, I know that you wrestled before in Italy, I think for an independent promotion.
Yes.
Do you think that TNA can reach its potential to maybe do some tours in Italy, and would you like to compete for TNA in Italy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I loved wrestling in Italy. It was an awesome experience. I loved the promotion. The promoter was an awesome dude as well. It was a great time, and I think that TNA is. I think that the future is very bright for TNA, and I just see it only growing from here. If you look at the reception that the company had on the UK tour, I know from doing independent wrestling shows in Europe, in countries like Italy and Germany and Poland, we know the demand is there for TNA, and we want to bring it to these countries. Francesco, that was the name of the promoter. Very cool guy.
Francesco, so we'll say ciao Francesco. And
Yeah.
speaking about what's ahead for TNA, of course, the next big pay-per-view, Rebellion in April, Las Vegas. What do you think about TNA going to Las Vegas?
Oh, I mean, it's that venue is unbelievable. The town is unbelievable. I love Las Vegas. And to be honest with you, I these days I don't drink. The only gambling I've ever really done is, when I've entered a casino and they give you the free token to go and gamble. It's not something that I'm super into. So I don't love Vegas for the usual party reasons. It's more just the energy of the town. And I feel like it's there's something about Vegas, and I think when you bring wrestling to Vegas and do it in a beautiful venue like the Palms, and they just, when we saw the old school TNA entrance ramp, that's special. That to me shows that management is making a huge commitment to honor the heritage of TNA wrestling, but also moving forward to say, hey, we're in this for the long haul, and we're gonna deliver on production. And every time now when I walk through that tunnel, I think of all the TNA originals, some of whom are still on the roster at the top of the card with us, helping the younger talent learn and doing what they do at the highest level. So to me, it's a special experience to walk through that tunnel and doing it for that walking through that tunnel for the first time in Vegas last time is pretty special. And again, that's where me and AJ Francis kicked off our program. So that was, and it to me, it couldn't have gone better. The reaction that we got live and online after, I've got very great memories of Vegas and TNA being in Vegas. So I'm super excited to go back. I think it's a fantastic place to host TNA wrestling.
Perfect. Last two questions to close out the interview. A curiosity for Italian fans. How did the idea of doing this music vignettes part of this came by? Do you remember your first ever one that you did?
Um, so the first one that I ever did was the entrance music that I had for ICW. And to be honest with you, like I'd been a musician for 10 years, I think, prior to that point. So I like I said, I didn't make it in music or anything, but I know that I can write songs and I can write catchy songs. That was my big skill. And I was just always too precious about it. So I never really put songs out and stuff. But just even for my own entertainment, I was just writing songs and producing all day. So it just, for whatever reason, I can just come up with hooks and ideas for things like that. And the first ICW video, the filming style, it's very influenced by the British humor style. So it's like very like the UK Office, those sort of influences mixed in with the sort of South Park crude animation and humor. I feel like it's an amalgamation of those two mixed in with my input and the singing and stuff like that. And so I think it just organically came together over time when it came to like the parodies. But the first song that I did was actually a parody of the ICW theme song. So my idea was one thing that's always served me well in wrestling is if everybody on the roster is doing one thing. So in ICW, everybody was doing hardcore matches and blood and all this. I was like, I'll go the other way and I'll be the pop star, you know. So that's how it came about. So I wrote a pop song.
Yeah, and I think it worked out. It worked out pretty well. And
Yeah,
the best song you ever did, because I think the one you did with Matt Cardona was pretty amazing. So
I I was just gonna say it's probably got to be the Matt Cardona one. It probably has to. I just think, to be honest, musically, in terms of music, I think it works for a number of reasons. I think it works in terms of music, like it's very it's melodically very strong, and I think that the people just weren't expecting that zinger of saying Edge's bitch. So it's a funny reveal. And I think it's just like, it's an amazing business that Matt Cardona and Brian Myers have built up. It is amazing, but I think it is just funny because you just got to believe that there is that little bit of like, so it was. Let me think about how to word this. I think it was just funny because I think as guys, we had like guys sometimes we collect stuff and all that, and I think sometimes it could be annoying to our partners or whatever. So I think a lot of people could identify with that about like because spending all your time and money on toys rather than the people around you and stuff like that. So I think there's a few people that could identify with it. So I think it was like a funny. I think it was funny for non-wrestling fans as well. So I had a lot of fun making that, but it was actually made hours before I flew out. Originally, we were going to do a parody of Matt Cardona's theme song, and I called management at 11 p.m. and my flight was something like 6 a.m., something like that. And I was like, oh no, I think we finished in the studio at 11 p.m. So I must have called management at like 8 p.m. or something like that. The studio is like just under an hour away. And I was like, it's not, we can't parody Matt Cardona's theme song. That's not the one. I was like, I need to call him Edge's bitch. I need to call him Edge's bitch. And then I remember I did the song, and this is what I do love about Impact. They just let me do it. They just trusted me. They went, all right, if that's it, go do it. And I have loved, that's my favorite thing about Impact. When I first debuted and I did like those crazy vignettes, I literally had to say like, hey, so my idea is there's gonna be a guy in a hospital bed who's like, so my first vignette was in a hospital and he flatlines and I burst through the door, and imagine explaining that as a talent, but they just trusted me to go and film this intricate scene and just let me go do my thing. So that's what I love about Impact Wrestling. They let me be me.
Perfect, perfect. Let's think to close out the interview. A message you want to give to the Italian fans who watch TNA?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love Italy. Absolutely love it. I was in, believe it or not, I was in Milan Fashion Week.
Ah,
The designer Philip Plein at his show, he decided he wanted to have wrestling at his show. So I was one of the wrestlers in the Philip Plein showcase in Milan Fashion Week, and I had an amazing time in Milan. It was awesome. So I've been to a few different places in Italy, but I haven't, other than Milan, I haven't got to see much of it because it's just been hotel, airport, venue, and then back. So next time I go to Italy, I want to see it because it's a beautiful country. I really love the people there. I love the vibe there. I'll tell you what, it's one of the places I could imagine myself living. Actually, I loved Italy, loved everything about it. And you know what? Let's bring TNA to Italy. Let's do it. Let's do it.
we'll do an hashtag bring TNA back to Italy. So, and bring
Yeah.
TNA for the first time in Italy because they done, I think it was a joint show past a couple of years ago, yeah, but not a full TNA show. So
Yeah.
let's bring
Let's
TNA,
do it.
and of course TNA can be watched on that zone TNA Plus. Joe, it's been a pleasure. Good luck for your future. Thank you very much. Grazie.
Thanks, Luca.